Audacity as girly pop is so wonderful. So true.
This Should Be a Game, a podcast about adaptive media and filtering 90% of your experiences through tabletop role-playing games. Go check out thissshouldbeaga.me to figure out where you can support us on Patreon and join our Discord to chat games with us and follow us on Bluesky. I stumbled in that sentence because I said figure out, like there's going to be a puzzle, which is not exactly the case, though I guess it could be. It's up to us.
You might have to give it a few tries.
Yeah, you know, we will give you all the clues. It's up to you to put them together. I'm Satah. You can find me on Bluesky at potatochips.gaygothvibes.online. You can check out my website at gaygothvibes.online. Once more, I find myself stumbling out of the dorms into a fresh, beautiful morning. And Jess, I know that you have been playing Ultimate Frisbee as I leap in to stop the disc from bouncing off of your forehead. Where can people find you?
They can find me in the quad being surprised because I didn't think you had those type of reflexes, but I guess you have to because you did catch the Frisbee before it hit my forehead. But they can also find me online as at jessfrom.online on Bluesky, or they can find my games anywhere you can find Jumpgate games, especially on itch.io.
And Marn, as I continue my journey through campus, what classic just college quad activity are you getting up to that I can possibly in future loops help avert disaster or improve your situation in some form?
You can find me tabling in the student center trying to get people signed up for Humans vs. Zombies.
Absolutely.
Oh wow, yeah.
And you can also find me in most places that I care to be found as at corpserevivers with an S. I think I'm there on Bluesky, on Letterboxd, on pretty much everything. You can find my games at marns.itch.io as all one word. And I also host podcasts on the Moonshot Network, which you can find at moonshotpods.com or at goodfuckingpodcast.com.
What an incredible URL. Also, I think you're the first guest to shout out their Letterboxd, which, like, of course, with this podcast. Like,
I never get to shout it out on any other show.
Their social. Yeah. Like, we should have that in our standard thing of, like, yes, where can I find you online and what's your Letterboxd?
Well, I have to keep mine, it's not a secret, but I sort of meticulously tag why I'm watching movies and where I watched them, so it is spoilers for this show, I guess, if you follow me on Letterboxd, because I don't know. I mean, again, I'll give you all the clues. If you can figure out what TSBG in my Letterboxd tags mean, you might figure out some stuff that we're watching before we announce it. Maybe that's a perk. I don't know. Speaking of fucking cool segue, movies that you watched, Marn, had you seen Happy Death Day before? What were your sort of like general takeaways from it? How was the experience?
I love this movie.
Yeah, me too.
I think I hadn't seen it since around the time it came out, but I remember watching it around the time it came out and being like, damn, this movie is really good. And I think I maybe watched it again when the sequel came out because I wanted to watch it before watching the sequel.
You clearly have like some amount of affinity for time loops. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite sort of time loop piece of media or a general set of favorites? And also, is there something specific that really draws you towards that and designing in that?
Oh god. Yeah, I really like Palm Springs. Obviously, I've made a game based on it. Stop me if you've heard this one before. There's a visual novel called Higurashi, which is about a group of kids in a supposedly cursed town that are stuck in a time loop where tragic things keep happening to them. And I think it's really good. It's one of my favorite pieces of time loop media, especially because it, this is a little bit spoilers, but it posits that like the only way to get out of this cycle of tragedy is to talk to each other about it and be upfront about the problems that you're having. And I like time loops that do that sort of thing that Ryukishi, the writer, does, of like, if you don't approach each other with a certain amount of love and understanding, you're not getting out of the loop.
I love that. There's something that stood out to me in Happy Death Day specifically, is that the solution wasn't her becoming a better person. Like, that wasn't why she got out of the loop, but she was just given the opportunity to try again enough times that she did improve. And I like that. There's something really lovely about like, okay, I'm gonna give you another fucking chance at that. I'm gonna let you try and get that right next time. That is really cool.
And something we actually talked about with Caleb a whole bunch was the ways that like Happy Death Day also does a lot of like, people are more than what you first thought of them, in a way that like knowing that that's something that you love feels like there's a lot for you to get here as well. It's
so good. I also just love like a time loop where somebody is being hunted for sport, which is part of why I also really like Palm Springs.
Yeah, while you were watching it, sort of like, as somebody who has made games involving time loops, heavily featuring time loops, as somebody who likes it as a genre, is familiar with and likes this movie, was there anything that immediately stuck out to you as an element in Happy Death Day that you're like, okay, yeah, this is the thing, this is like the thing you would want to explore in a game that is playing off of it?
So something about time loops in general that interests me is that they're kind of like a Metroidvania, in that when you get farther in the loop, you open up new paths of like and like areas to visit. And I think that this movie does that really well, of like sort of the more paths she takes and the more stuff she does, like the more experiences like open to her, and like she has different conversations with all these different people and like finds these different clues. And the other thing is that I like the kind of slasher take on it, where she is like, she starts to retain damage in between the loops. And like her body is remembering like the trauma, even if it didn't technically happen.
Yeah, is that about like, is it the fact that it gives it a timer for you, or is it sort of like the consequences of it?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting consequence that not a lot of other time loops, like even horror ones, do, of like, you can go through all of these loops, but you technically have a limited amount to figure it out because your body is going to fail at some point.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked through an idea with Caleb that we can either sort of like dig in deeper on that. We'll like, just give you a little summary of what we talked about. We can either dig in deeper on that, or we can focus on some of that stuff that you brought up there that is like a little bit more specific. I am very interested in the idea of just sort of like starting from the ground up a little bit in this episode and just being like, yeah, here's the totally different thing that we could build off of this, is also very appealing to me. But we'll sort of like talk about what we talked about with Caleb, just in case that like clicks and you're like, oh, never mind, this is perfect, this is what we want to do. Basically, the format is that you have a rotating protagonist. Everyone at the table plays the protagonist one after the other. While you're going through the loop, everyone else plays like a specific NPC or obstacle, and you're trying to like overcome them. And there is a killer, and between every full round, so everyone does one loop of the loop where they are playing the protagonist, and then at the end you all vote sort of Survivor style to be like, who's the killer? Did we figure out who the killer was in this? And if there isn't consensus, then the top voted person becomes eliminated as a suspect. So you have to like completely agree on who the killer is. There is also an aspect of secret knowledge where like somebody might write down like, this person's secret is they're failing a class, and they're acting suspicious because they're failing a class and secretly doing extra credit work, and that's why they're sneaking around and being all weird. and that knowledge is written down by somebody and then like distributed randomly, so we don't know which character has that secret, and we're all sort of like playing to figure out hidden knowledge and learn more about all of the characters and make it all happen and all that kind of thing. Did I miss anything major for the concept, Jess?
No, I think those are the big things, the big beats.
I think that one of the reasons that I wanted to very explicitly frame this as we could go deeper on that, or we could do a whole new idea, is that there aren't a lot of open questions immediately for me in that concept. But one of the reasons we have other people on is so that they can be like, well, but no, you haven't thought about this one specific thing, so here is an open question. So, was there anything in there that stood out to you as something you would want to explore a little bit more, that you have questions about?
I do like there being an almost like hidden role aspect, or like some amount of like hidden plot stuff going on, because like in the movie it feels like there is, like, you don't really know what's going on with like Tri's relationship with her dad until like very late in the game, because she doesn't go to talk to him until way late in the movie. And I do like there being that element. There is a board game called Tragedy Looper that this movie reminds me a little bit of, and it's like there is a game master and then there are players, and the game master has like a basically like secret scenario that they're trying to enact with a bunch of like the NPCs, and you as the players are trying to, within I think like 3 or 4 loops, like figure out what that scenario is via like context clues that you're being given, and like stop it. And it does remind me a little bit of that. It's also a really hard board game.
It sounds like it. I mean, that adding a building something that has a win condition in that specific way is kind of fascinating to me, especially if somehow we can make it like, if you could make it and that plays really well off of the aspect you pulled of like, there are consequences. She's holding damage over, like, be like, yeah, you have 5 loops before you die for real, kind of thing. And one of the things I would be curious about is like, can we make it so that you can play that 3 times in an evening? Like, can somebody be a GM and
that's
like
really fun,
walk you through this thing and then be like, nope, sorry, you died. somebody else take it over, that kind of thing. I
do also really like the idea of like, you start out knowing nothing, like you have to figure everything out through context clues, because like when like at the beginning of the movie, like nobody knows that it's a time loop. Like Tri figures it out the second time around, and then like nobody really believes her except Carter, who kind of has to, for plot reasons, immediately believe her every single time.
We really didn't talk about in the episode with Caleb what it is like to establish anything. That was really not something we explored, and I'm now thinking about how interesting it is to be like, a character in a time loop movie does not know they're in a time loop movie on loop 1. And so a lot of your like sort of loopy mechanics don't even necessarily have to, or maybe even shouldn't come up on loop 1. And I'm actually immediately fascinated by like, if this is a game about having a limited number of rounds to learn things, what does that mean for your first round? It's such an interesting question to me. Because
I think even in like Groundhog Day, it takes like 3 days to be like, wait, something's wrong.
Yeah, Tri on loop 2 is just like, this is deja vu, and it's loop 3 where it's like, no, wait, no. Yeah, there feels like there's something fun there. There's potentially some comedy in it, but also like an interesting design challenge there.
It's it is a thing that is in some ways unique to creating a game that like, it would be really unlikely for us to find ourselves in a scenario where the person or people playing the protagonist don't know that a time loop game is going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to, like, on some level, accept that you're angling in that direction.
Which, like, in some ways, I think there's a few different ways to approach that. And one thing is what the movie does. If you walked into Happy Death Day and didn't know it was going to be a time loop movie, how would you interpret the like walking through the campus scene? Like when she leaves the door and just like 10 really specific events happen? Like what would you think is going to happen there? It's like okay, are we just like, are these people all going to be important later? Or like, I truly don't know. If you didn't know that this was going to be a time loop, I don't know how that scene would be interpreted. And so I wonder if it can be leaned into in that way. I wonder if there's like a, look, we all know what we're doing here. Let's just sort of play out this scene and establish a bunch of silly little things. And we don't even know what's important yet until the next time.
Or you like go back and do that in between loop. This is me pulling my own game design, but in Time to Drop, I have it so like you are going back in between the loops and as an intermission being like, and here's the scene from right before we were in the time loop.
Yes.
That's really good, because like doing it in media res that way means that you don't have to deal with that time that you don't know you're in a time loop until you already have, like, when you're writing a time loop movie, you're writing that first scene with the knowledge of what will be important, and so you get to sort of do that same thing in a game fashion. That's really smart. I do want to pitch an absolutely insane complete inversion.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we can throw it out if we want to, which is just I'm imagining when I came into this movie, I didn't know just how much it was going to center around Tree. This is my first time watching it very recently, and I was like, my vague impressions of a slasher is that it's often, you know, a whole group of people and then they get killed off one by one, and it's very cool how this movie plays with making that tree every time. But I, on the first loop, was like, so which set of people are going to be looping? And then found out, no, it's just Tree. I'm now thinking about, imagine there's like 4-player characters and only one of them is going to be looping, but you don't really know during the first time through who is going to loop, and it's random at the end. So none of you do actually know if you're in a time loop. And then one of you finds out, and then the game shifts.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. Is it a final girl thing? Like, is it we're just playing a straightforward slasher
until
and whoever makes it to the end is going to loop
back.
and then like yeah, and then I wonder if that will lead to like part of the game is like, can you save all your friends? Like, is it that, or is it like something more complicated? Like, what is it?
That plays into the Happy Death Day thing, where she's like, well, I can't end the loop because Carter would die. It's like, I'm not allowed to end the loop until I do the good loop where I save everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, but you are on a counter too, because you're dying from dying repeatedly. So like, you only have a few to get it right and save everyone. Oh my god.
Yeah, one of the best parts of the movie is like she thinks she can end the loop, but then she just can't, because she's like, well, people have already died, I can't let this be the last one, or like those consequences are permanent.
I think that, so 2 thoughts. It sounds like a interesting potential framework for this is almost like a high lethality OSR style game. But then you add a framework of, really by the way, you're going to loop. The other thing I want to raise is the idea that maybe it isn't the same character who loops every time. Maybe it is just always the last person to die.
Oh, that's fun.
I don't know. I think that making a call on that either way could be interesting. Maybe you get a limited number of times. Maybe it's like, okay, the last person to die, cool. You get 4 tries, and then when you die... you can't loop anymore. And so it's like, it is both everyone's getting killed once per loop, but then there's also like a wider scale, like over the course of 50 loops, can you defeat the serial killer by the end of that? Because if not, you're all dying for real.
I think that's fun, because like if you have different people doing the loop, then you have just like, they have different options that are open to them as a character. I feel like, and like different skills that they can lean on and stuff like that.
Oh, that's interesting. So potentially characters have like maybe literal skills, or maybe it's just like something we know about the character. And so, oh, that's really fun getting to see people, like you know, loop around to your track and field star person who's like, I'm just gonna go so fast, I'm gonna run all over campus, I'm gonna tell everybody what's happening, and that's how we're gonna fix this. Sounds really great. I love the opportunity to see multiple people trying to solve the same or very similar problems in different ways. One question I have, can they convince each other that there is a time loop.
Yeah, that's such a... It really hinges on that. I was thinking the same thing.
Because I think either is interesting. What I think is interesting is making a call about it definitively.
Yeah.
Like the idea of having a rule that is you are not allowed to try and convince people that there's a time loop is like, I mean, I think that defeats... You wouldn't want to actually just totally take that off the table, because being able to do the, like, I'm going to predict exactly what happens, look at me go, I know all of this unlikely stuff, is fun. And you don't want to just remove that. But, like, maybe having it be, like, a to each person thing, like, be like, you are a logical and reasonable person.
Mm-hmm.
You are not just going to be convinced that a time loop is happening.
Yeah, I feel like it would have to be a character choice of, like, does your character believe that there's something weird going on?
I was also thinking of, like, I'd be curious to tie these together also if we went this direction, but just like a phased thing would also make sense to me, because like any time loop movie, you have to have been through enough loops to actually prove it, and it also adds a sort of natural progression if you get these much more independent explorations up until you get to a point where it's like, you might already at the table kind of be like, okay, I'd like us to be a little more on the same page by now. Like, it's time to start working together a little more. And so having a natural set of like your specific character has to loop enough to be able to convince other
like
people.
That.
And that doesn't have to guarantee you convince them, so there's still that character choice. But just like, if you haven't seen this at least 3 times or whatever, like, you don't have a chance.
One of the things I like about the idea that it is a character trait is also, I think that could really interestingly flavor how well they deal with looping.
Oh my
like,
God.
Yeah.
If you are playing the like kind of sci-fi, like, of course alternate dimensions are real type of person, you wake up, you only have to see one thing that's the same before you're like, all right, I'm in a time loop, I know exactly what to do, here's what I'm going to try. And that doesn't mean that you like succeed automatically, but just flavoring the person who's like, all right, let's start experimenting, let's start trying things, I know what we're doing, I know what movie I'm in, versus the person who's like really stubborn and wakes up and is like, there's an explanation for this.
You could also have like, I feel like play around with that and like have somebody know like, oh, I'm in a slasher movie, but not recognize that they're in a time loop.
Oh, playing with the like 2 different genres, absolutely.
What genre awareness do you have?
Yeah, like
It's
what
so
what
fun.
flavor of genre aware are you?
I mean, then we're doing a little bit of Cabin in the Woods, right?
Yeah, and like a little bit of Scream as well.
Uh-huh. That is so funny to think of doing in like a maximalist way, where you're like, every character thinks they're in a different genre.
Yeah.
But like,
And
we're
their
telling you what
loops
you're
are
in.
really
but like,
influenced by that.
yeah, how do you approach this? If you're in a coming of age rom-com,
Oh,
like,
my God.
what the fuck are you doing in this? How are you approaching this? Are you like, oh, I just need to find my true love and everything will be fine? Or like,
We are getting the most like the distilled energy of this should be a game at the point where we're going, what if all of the characters are in their own genre piece? Like, it's incredible. I'm thinking about a couple different things with that, which is like, one is a game that I've never played, but Satah, you've told me about repeatedly, which is Action Movie World, right? The one where you're playing actors playing a movie, and you have a bit like powers that relate to like actually being the actor.
oh, action movie. Yes, sorry, I haven't played it. I was misinterpreting.
yes.
I have read it though. Yes, absolutely.
And you are playing the actors playing out scenes, but the
That's
game
so fun.
isn't being on a movie set. The game is the world, but your powers relate to the type of actor you are. And the idea of getting to play in some of that meta level genre stuff is so fun. And like, the other thing is that this lets us do, one of the things we talked about with Caleb was like, are we doing the very specifics of Happy Death Day, or are we doing time loops in general? Like what approach are we really thinking about this? The idea that everyone's in their own little genre means that we get to have the Groundhog Day character and the Edge of Tomorrow character
that's so fun.
and the Happy Death Day character, and they are like, we get to play, because what made that click for me was when you said like, if you're the rom-com character, you think if you're find you true love, it's fixed. in a time loop movie, you have your how does it get fixed, and then in the slasher, it was figure out and defend yourself from the killer, and in Groundhog Day, you got to learn the lesson, and like everyone having their own different conditions for like what would make them end the loop based on their genre is so fun.
That is really fun, actually. I do like that a lot.
I like narrowing down the specificity of that and saying it isn't just like, it is specifically about different time loop genres. Like it is about, you have somebody who has to become a better person. Mm-hmm. You have somebody who just needs to find the witch that has cursed them.
And breaking your loop doesn't break other people's loops necessarily, which I love.
Oh, that's really fun, because then is it like you like forget that you were in the loop, or like you're not, like you're just moving linearly but you remember that like you were in the time loop? like
your good end gets locked in somewhat or something,
and then like how do you interact with everyone else who is still
unless someone can bump you out of having solved your loop is really funny. Like their fuck up means that you don't make it in time to kill the witch, and so now you're looping again. Oh my god, the comedy of errors.
God, it's getting that is almost like a war game setup in an insane way, where you're like, okay, everybody make your call of what you're going to do right now. And like you could, and then we have to resolve all of them.
all of them at once.
Oh, this is a nightmare. I love it.
That is, there is something really fun to that, because then I feel like you could have kind of like cascade failures of like one person fucks something up for everybody else.
That's so great, right? Like you go to kill the witch that has cursed you, and it turns out that like she has the secret knowledge, and she is the true love of the other.
She is the true love. It's so good.
Oh, and I mean, one thing I love about leaning into that, the cascading failures thing, is that means that, and we'll I don't know how explicit this is. I don't know if this is something the characters know. I think that they probably do have to figure this out and find this out. That means that you are looking for the perfect solution for everyone's thing, probably within a specific, like a time frame. Like, be like, okay, so the witch who cursed me only did it because she's lonely, and so rom-com time loop. You have to go and propose marriage within 3 hours of us waking up on time loop day, and that means that she won't curse me later. I love that. That sounds absurd.
If we're leading into a like OSRE and there's skill checks and stuff, which is not the sort of game we have typically made on here, but if we were to lean into that, it's sort of delightful with some of the cascading failure stuff, because like adding that random element is like so fun to me. And specifically, I'm thinking, is it Sam Sorensen who did the time loop module for Mothership, where there's like a map of a dungeon that is essentially all the hours in the day in this week and what is happening in a place at a time, and you're exploring a dungeon map that is a calendar of events. It's like a 7-day GCal layout, which is brilliant. And I'm not thinking exactly that, but I am thinking about the idea of like what you're producing, what you're trying to succeed at, is make the map of the day that works. It's like, okay, in the first 2 hours we do this, and then the 5th hour we do this, and it's like, oh, now we have to do this in the 3rd hour, which means the 5th hour doesn't work anymore. And so you're trying to loop until you succeed, and maybe like once you lock something in, you don't have to roll on next time. It's just a question of like, can you figure out the sequence that like once you've succeeded once, you can reproduce it if nothing before it changes. Can you get to a fully functional sequence?
That's really fun as a mirror of like how time loops do the thing of like you're getting more competent at the loop, like the more that you do it. I feel like it would be interesting to have like, well, you could take a whole loop off and like learn how to do this one skill, but like then you're just not in that loop for anybody else. Like you can't help anyone else with their own shit.
Oh my god.
But you can learn how to play piano really good.
Yes.
That's also such a classic time loop trope, right? It's like the one where like at the beginning they don't know how to play piano, and by the end they do. That's so, you can add skills to your sheet. It's so fun.
One thing that kind of pushes me towards is, so I've been thinking about like, okay, what does this look like to play? What is the pace of play? And one thing I'm thinking with the idea of skill building is something that might be helpful here is for it to be more than a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like have it be a week or something like that. And I think that gives like some more time to sort of stretch out into the scenes to play stuff out. It also means that things can go wrong in a lot more different ways, but you also have recovery time built in, which might be good for like just to make sure that it's not like super frustrating to have things go wrong. But I still, so that is something that I just want to float as something that we're generally thinking about. I do still have the somewhat big overall question of, okay, what does this look like to play? Like, how is this playing out? Is there a GM who is sort of like producing all of this? Is it a one shot where you're trying to figure this out, or is it meant to be a short campaign where every session you're going through one loop and then you're like, okay, next time here's what we're going to do differently? How do we keep that satisfying? How that generally is a thing for time loops, I think, in games, is like, okay, well, how is it fun? How is it fun to do the same thing over and over again? Which is, I think, one of the reasons why I get scared to think of something that's more than a one shot. But like, I don't think it's impossible. Any thoughts on like what this actually looks like to play, sort of what the structure of it is?
I do like the idea of it being a campaign game, and I am saying this very much as somebody who is in a time loop campaign game right now.
Hell yeah.
But I know that like the way that we do that a lot of the time is like, oh, if you've already like successfully done this thing, then you just do it. Or you can say out loud, like, I am ignoring that we have to go do this task and like go somewhere else for the rest of the loop. And then like those consequences will happen because we haven't dealt with it.
Do we do a rotating GM seat?
Ooh,
where
that's
because fun. We have a if we do keep the only one person is looping, the people who is it one player X GMs where whoever is not looping is GMing? I'm not sure, because you also want them to play their like characters and stuff, but like I'm thinking about like in the GM role, what do we want out of what a GM does here? And I think like the thing that is interesting to me, especially if we're having like a roll to attempt type sorts of things, is someone who says, okay, here is how it goes wrong, so that the person looping doesn't have to say, okay, here is how it goes wrong. I don't know what I'd be interested in flipping back to you, say, to a question of like, what a GM is a collection of responsibilities. Which of those responsibilities are you feeling like you want to define? And then we can like put those into boxes, because I immediately see a desire to have not the person looping be the one defining the failed outcomes. But I'm curious if there's other things coming to you.
Yeah, there's a few different things. One of which is if everybody has some like, probably answering the question of is only one person looping, because I loved that idea, but also I like the idea of everyone having their own thing that they're trying to solve. So that would sort of lean away from that a little bit, unless we're like point. Really upping the pacing of it kind of thing. So like there's a decision point there. And so when we're talking about everyone having their own thing and it being this like multi-layered scenario where everything, like there's a lot of different things to track, that's when I start to lean towards like, okay, maybe there should be one person who is looking at the overall picture of stuff rather than being focused on some of the more like specific character narratives. So that's where I lean towards that, and just having somebody who is responsible for the bigger, like, here's how this ties together. And if we are doing a sort of like, maybe I'm having OSR influences because of how that came up, but just like having somebody who is essentially adjudicating.
Yeah.
Of
yes.
like,
yes.
Because you can all get in each other's way and whatever, having one person who can be like, here's how this resolves, here's how these layer on top of each other, rather than sharing that, sounds to me like it might be a better division of that energy, which is rare for me to say.
So, two things about that. One, I am thinking about both loving belonging outside belonging games and knowing how hard it is in belonging outside belonging games to adjudicate our character. We want different things for our character narratives in this moment. How do we decide which way it goes? I'm immediately like, Satah, you're right. We should have a someone who is adjudicating that, who doesn't have to be the players. It just makes this thing so much easier. And also, you framing it both in OSR and adjudication terms, I'm thinking about the way that Fist uses referee, not GM. And that is leaning into, that's a term that used to get used for like really old school war games, like you said, leaning into the wargaming aspect, where like it was more narrative and it wasn't strictly defined rules. It was a referee makes a judgment call.
Which I do have complicated feelings on the idea that objectivity exists, and
Yes.
that especially in games, like I just want to put that out there, that this is not a thing that we are just accepting as completely true, that someone can just be objective to adjudicate a narrative thing, which I know you know. I just want to have that on record because
So
some
the
people
shared
don't
assumptions
know
that we have, everyone else knows we are making.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love the idea of someone who's in a role where like it is the sort of Dungeons and Dragon-y vision of a GM who has a story that they're telling and they've written their novel and you get to make decision points in it, is a very different one than the one who is like, we have run into a point where these different characters' narratives conflict and their desires conflict. How do we adjudicate what happens? And that goes to this third party. And having these very, very PC-driven narratives, and then someone who gets to say, I will adjudicate what happens when there's uncertainty between characters. I will adjudicate what happens when there is uncertainty in whether your character succeeds. You are setting where you want to be going, but when you run into an obstacle and you aren't sure if you succeed, I get to say, like, what happens when it doesn't go right or something like that.
Or call for a mechanic or something, call for a roll, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I think that's fun. And then kind of additionally, like, you have an extra person to, like, if you want to bring characters from outside the time loop, you could be like, play this NPC.
Yeah.
Make up a guy.
Make up a guy. Yeah,
I want to play this. I already want to play this.
That's especially great if we're trying to lean into tying everyone's stories together, because I know that if I were in this sort of like GM-ish role, being given a character and asked to make them relevant to 5 people would be very exciting to me. Like,
Yes.
If that's even kind of a rule for a lot of NPCs, like you have to at least have a tenuous connection with everybody, even if it's like we're neighbors. We were in the same study group at one time. And so, like, having those little connections, and maybe that becomes part of the exploration of, like, well, I think that this person's just my neighbor, but now something happened that made me realize that they actually have a really intense, like, they are tied to my story in some way. And you get to, like, find out those, like, the weird ways that everything overlaps. Sounds very stupid and satisfying.
Agreed. We're back on our red string bullshit, and I love it.
Sure.
Well, then you can also have, like, characters like that exist kind of across genres between your different characters.
Oh my god.
I love the idea. I mean, it would be a big ask for it to be a real, like, a thing, but the idea of, like, getting a slightly different introduction for a character depending on, like, who the prospective character at that moment is so good. Like, you have your, like, petals from a tree are going past as the wind gently picks up their hair, because we're in sort of the, like, romancy character's perspective, but then someone else just sees them, like, I don't know what other genres do. They see them kicking somebody. They see them driving a car real cool.
You get a horror movie morality tale where they show why they're gonna die this loop.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that. The idea of, like, whose camera are we in is so fun. Like, which character's camera are we watching?
It is fun. It's really high lift for the GM, probably,
Yeah,
in a way that,
absolutely.
like, that's why I would shy away from sort of codifying it. But it is something that is really fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, especially because then you get like characters disagreeing about stuff in a really fundamental way as well.
Like telling the story of the time loop and being like, this is how it happened, and I was like, I don't remember any lotus petals floating through the air, but like I guess
there
maybe
being a killer.
What are they doing in my story?
So, okay, we have everyone is in their own time loop, but all of the time loops coincidentally are exactly the same, it sounds like.
Yes.
Everyone is trying to... Everyone has their own goals. We have somebody who is trying to fall in love. We have somebody who is trying to find a serial killer. We have somebody who's trying to find the witch that cursed them. We presumably have somebody who is like doing something with tech, who is like in the sequel trying to find whose science fair project basically is doing something to them.
Say that one. Terrible. Oh no.
I mean, that's not literally what's happening. What's happening is a lot stupider. It's not a very good movie, unfortunately.
We have the action movie character who's in Edge of Tomorrow and has to like beat the bad guy who's doing it.
Yeah.
They're fighting aliens while the other person's falling in love.
So one thing I'm trying to imagine is there is a challenge that I don't think is impossible that comes to codifying mechanics when everyone is playing in a different space. And I think in part that does come down to like, you know, having different skills, having whatever. And maybe that means that characters are built in a little bit more of a modular way where it's like you have 4 stats, but you decide what those 4 stats are.
So I have had sitting up on my computer to come back around to when we got the chance. The system Roll for Shoes. Oh. I heard it for the first time on an episode of Worlds Beyond Number where they're playing farm animals trying to heist from a state fair. And the way Roll for Shoes works is that you start with 1 skill. You start with do anything 1. And 1 is the number of d6s you roll to see if you succeed. And it's opposed, it's all opposed rolls. And then if you get all 6s, you rank up a skill in whatever you were doing. And so fun. you have to get more specific. And so if you roll a 6, you go from do anything 1 to bullshitting 2. And then if you succeed again, you might go to lying about identification cards 3. And in a time loop movie, the idea of each time you loop, it's like, well, what did you spend that loop doing? You now have that 2. You now have this 3. And so you're taking shape as a character skilled in stupidly specific things through the act of looping and seeing what you're doing is really fun to me.
You're doing skill tree progression in the time
absolutely.
Loop.
But the skills aren't preset. They are coming from the actions that you take.
I like that a lot.
There's a little bit of like a Realis sentence going on there too, getting 100%. More powerful and specific.
And the idea that something we could do that's a little different than Roll for Shoes, and actually very Realis, because Realis, you start with your like archetypal character sentences that are more generic and less powerful because you're playing an archetype. We get to define genre set of skills. If you exist in this genre, there are a set of things that a person in this genre starts the movie good and bad at. And then you progress. You are biased by those skills. You start leaning into those things and then also progressing in unexpected ways.
That's really fun. It could also be a thing of like, if somebody gets out of the loop, they kind of distribute a skill across everyone else. I'm thinking about the video game Sexy Brutale, which is like you're doing basically like a backwards murder mystery where you're like going around to different areas of this house and like de-engineering like murders that are happening, and for every person you save you get like a new power to help you de-engineer the rest of them.
That brings up one of the questions from me, which is what is character interaction? What is player interaction in this game? Which part of that, one of the things that might be that might be necessary there is not saying you can't convince people that you're in a time loop. Like maybe that was from a very different like ideation of this idea. But like, is this right now, the concept feels a little bit like a game where everyone is only interacting with the GM.
Totally.
How do we push that? How do we have players interacting with each other, or how do we have people playing important NPCs in each other's stories or something? Like, what does that look like too? Because I'm bringing this up right now specifically because I love the idea of distributing skills and making that a little bit literal of like, well, we interacted, I taught you how to do this thing, though I can only give it to you if I like escape my loop or whatever kind of thing, makes so much sense. And I want to know what the precedent of that is. Like, what's leading up to that? What does it look like?
I'm wondering if maybe something the GM is supposed to do, and maybe this is not the right direction to go, but like when we talk about how we have to connect characters together, the GM is aiming to do it in ways that force character conflict.
That's
like
fun.
Put people in positions where they need different things out of these characters, so the characters have to negotiate these conflicts. And I'm also really into the idea of like those conflicts not being inevitable, but rather like at first it seems like you can't both get what you want, and part of the game is trying to figure out, like, it goes back to Satah, something I think you said that I was delighted by, which is like, the witch is the one who curses me, but I need to fall in love with them. And the first time your two characters figure that out, it's like, I need to kill that witch. And then the other person is like, no, I need to fall in love with her. And you're in conflict, and we can get like opposed roles or something, right? This referee coming in. And then you're like, wait, no, maybe she won't curse me if she falls in love with you. We could have been working together this whole time. And so the act of setting these characters up to be in conflict, and then they have to come to how would we work together, also feels like it plays in Happy Death Day themes, by the way. And so I really like that idea, but I don't know how that feels. And that's also, it asks so much of the GM.
I like the idea that there should or could be a way to set up that like different ways out of different loops exist like in opposition to each other, and you have to kind of like organically find a way to make like both of your end conditions true.
Yeah, I wonder if this is a system that is that the GM is essentially running a module kind of thing, and so there's a lot of like they're able to lean on that. And I wonder if we can massage those conflicting goals by having that be something that is defined in character creation, like having a goal that is set for you by the game that is get the witch out of the way or something like that, you know, like having it be something where it is obviously leading you to a specific interpretation, but you are encouraged to work with the other players to interpret it in a way where all of your goals that seem conflicting can happen. I don't know how that plays into the loop of it all. Like, I don't know what it looks like to have that and then keep learning more as you're playing, because it I'm sure there's something there, but that idea feels very like this would be about negotiating with other players and isn't really influenced by stuff you learn during the game. I also want to shout out, there's a blog post by Ben Robbins that I've been thinking about a lot in this, that is about the star pattern of GMs, that is specifically about like all of the players only interacting with the GM, and the thing that you want to set up is making your players fucking talk to each other so that not everything is just coming towards you in one direction. And that feels like a big thing to crack here, though there are several things.
It could be like you all get information on each other's stuff instead of like getting your own end condition.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe you don't get each other's end condition, but you start like knowing stuff about the other characters and like their loops. And then you kind of have an incentive to like talk to people and be like, hey, what have you learned?
Oh, I really like that. Yeah, like you have to trade information. You are exploring each other's stories, and then you have to communicate it to each other.
The idea that like It's again like this would be such a design challenge. Luckily, we don't have to actually go all the way there. But the idea of like that there is something making it so that you cannot solve it on your own, which like we have the very anime together we can all hold up this milk. If anyone's seen the
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Everyone's put it's everyone putting their hands together,
okay, sure.
and then
yeah.
by our powers combined. So the idea that like you cannot solve your own, but like why narratively in a way that is satisfying, and who is figuring out ways to put in narrative barriers that make any sense whatsoever as to why, unless the rom-com person goes and talks to the aliens, you cannot solve your own loop, is like really difficult, but also so fun to imagine if a game nails it.
I just love a game where characters start with secrets that they get to reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you can barter information off of each other.
God, the idea, now that working in an example here, the idea of the rom-com character trying to solve the Edge of Tomorrow stuff and using their genre influence of like, see, your problem is you would never have romanced the aliens. And that is just a shortcut to like solve this whole thing. And the idea that just like you're solving their problems orthogonally by your usage of being in a different genre is so fun to me.
And I think that goes back to like the Higurashi thing I was talking about of like you can only solve this for real if you all just like get in one location and talk to each other and just like literally just like share what you know.
That's really interesting in terms of both forcing together or forcing apart player characters. I'm thinking of Sata's classic Dream Askew, Dream Advice. Dream Advice?
Oh, I like that. Dream Askew, Dream Advice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what good play tips are. So Dream Askew, Dream Apart advice, where it's like split the party. One of the games where it actually really benefits from getting to see some alone time between some characters, and then other people getting to be like NPCs and stuff.
At the start, especially.
Yes, yeah. When you're still learning, like, who are all these people? And so the idea of, and you pointing out at the start is actually really relevant here, of like, is there phases of the game where you can't get everybody together and you're seeing a little bit more of what do like individual combinations look like and what do you learn from that, and then phases of the game where you have to get everybody together and then see what happens when you do piece everything together in this puzzle. You get like very narrow viewpoints that come from the combinations of characters that then expand as you put more and more characters together.
I love that so much.
You start by, and there was only one betting, like each of the sets of characters, and forcing them into proximity to see what happens. And then you go, now that we've got all that detail in that background, what happens when we mash it all up?
There's almost a structure here that is completely different, that is, this is a game that is a series of one-on-one sessions, and then you all come back together.
And then you all get together.
That's really fun.
That's amazing.
Oh, I wonder if it's like, if there's even like some stupid cosmic bullshit where it's like you are all separate and you are all going through this coincidental time loop, and then when you all die or whatever happens, you all meet back up in the space between time. And
I think
like,
that's really fun.
Then you have to like talk to each other and be like, the first time you're all like, who the fuck are you? And you're like learning about each other a little bit, and then you separate and have these one-on-one sessions, which for this structure could either be one GM, and probably it would be smart for it to be one GM, but they just have to do a lot. But there is also the version where people are GMing for each other kind of thing, and it's like a shared thing, or there's multiple of them or something. And then, yeah, you're learning more about the other people's stuff, and then you're coming back and you are like, one of the things that delights me about it is you are enacting plans. Like you're getting together and being like, okay, here's what you do. And then you all end up back in the space between time, and you're like, okay, what happened?
How'd that go for you?
I think that's fun because that then gets at like the sort of like isolation of being in the time loop and like not
Yes.
knowing how anybody else's shit is going and like being outside of like being able to share that information.
Something else I'm thinking about that is maybe too far afield, but that an opportunity that delights me in that is we talked a lot with Caleb actually about like what it is like to be a side character whose details we don't know and then we learn later in the movie. This is such heavy lift to play, and also for the like maybe even just on the first loop. You record your one-on-one session, and then the next person listens to it, and they go, I'm actually that side character who exists in a different genre space,
like that.
And I was having my time loop. Here's what happened from the moment you referenced the last time you referenced that character. Here's what the rest of their loop looked like. So that all of the characters already exist and are already woven in, and then backdating a whole story onto them, and then you figure out how you mash it all together.
Yeah, that rules. With like the isolation thing too, it's very fun because like I have recorded a podcast that was like we did a time loop thing and we brought different people in to play the same character for like all of the subsequent loops, and we didn't let them talk to each other because the idea was like this is a character who doesn't know that they're just like an incidental character in somebody else's time loop. And it was really fun to put essentially 4 different people in the same situation and see the ways in which and be like, you're this character, like you are going to die at the end of this, and then see the same ways in which they tried to wiggle out of that. and like the ways in which they all sort of did the same thing but in a different flavor. It was very fun.
That rules.
And I like the idea of like having that lack of communication and like having everybody go in with a plan but not know if they're gonna be able to enact that plan, or like having your varying degrees of success kind of like echo across the same world back and forth.
I'm interested in the idea of pulling on that a little bit by having like some stuff the GM doesn't make the call. You just like get a random message at 3 p.m. one afternoon and you're like, what would your character do if this happened to them? Or like, can you roll a die for this NPC or something? And you're like, yep, here's what I'd do. And then they take that back. Oh, another thing I want to throw out is the idea that this is a 10-player, 5GM, 5-player game where it's individual one-on-one sessions and the GMs are doing fucking something. I don't know. But like, so it's not just one person who is doing these things, but it's people going off and doing one-on-one sessions, or even like 2-on-1 sessions. Like maybe there's a little bit of variance there, but then this is feeling a little bit sensate as well of like, and then you all get brought together. But like, yeah, having some stuff that the GM very explicitly calls for from other people to like just throw a little bit of that, like, well, here's another perspective in here and here's how this is happening, sounds incredibly goofy and awesome.
I also love the stress of just like getting a random text of like,
yes,
what would you do in this situation? And be like, I guess something's happening in that other time loop that I'm not a part of.
God.
Caleb brought up the idea that like the audience is such an important part of time loop movies, in that like really they're the one judging, have you been a good enough person to escape your loop? Now we're making an actual play. We're not just making a game. We're making an actual play series. And the audience is literally voting on, like, did this person do their thing well enough to get out of their loop? Or if it's a home thing, like, there is a group of people whose mode of engagement is they are, like, listening or reading play reports and then judging whether you have done your thing to get out of your loop.
That's really funny.
That's very limiting in certain ways, so we don't necessarily need to keep going down that, but I'm just so delighted by that version of this.
I love everybody who listens to the actual play that I make. I deeply appreciate it. You are not part of the thing that I'm making.
That's true. It's a very specific and different
so
type
no.
of thing. Yeah.
I think that there is something interesting there. I think like the version of that I would be really curious about is kind of similar to the GM asking for input from other players, but adding another like weird level of oracle, like an oracular interpretation where you're like, hey, I need my cousin to text me. I'm going to be like, text me the latest picture in your camera roll. And if it's a cat, then I succeed. If it's an animal, then it's a mixed success. If it has no animal in it at all, then I fail. Doing these insane bets that are about people.
I am completely leaving the podcast here for a moment just to say, regardless of whether it's in this game, I now want the oracle texts that are, what would your character do in this situation? But you're not texting someone in the game. You're texting your cousin and saying, so here's the situation. This and this and this. What would you do? And then you go roleplay that character doing the thing your cousin would do.
Yes!
That so much.
And one of the things, like, to be a real asshole about it, one of the things I love about including that kind of bullshit in this game is that it can absolutely play in the same themes of communicating with other people as how you solve stuff.
Yes.
Like, and again, this is just such dipshit pretentious, like pretending that leaning into that is emotionally resonant is absurd of me. I'm going to do it anyway because that's the kind of shit I love to do. But like the idea of weighting something to be like, well, if I can explain a situation to somebody and then they play along, then that is more important than if I just did it on my own is like kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I do love that actually.
Oh my god, this rules.
Time loops are good, it turns out.
Time loops are good.
Who knew?
Just such a fun narrative space. That's something I've felt in both of these episodes so much, is just how much space for play exists in time loops, like inherently, like how much, like literally the character, every time loop media has the loop where they just play around, right? Like, they're just a format with so much space for play, and that's really, really fun.
I'm really, really endeared by the 5GM 5-player structure.
I am too.
It's so funny to me, especially really if they're doing if in the meeting times the GM is not there. Like the players all meet together and then the GMs have their own little meeting where they're doing something, like being like, okay, here's all of this. And they're like planning together to be like, ooh, here's how stuff, what happened, what got established. Oh, awesome. I'll bring that in. I'll introduce that character. I will make sure that she gets that book, you know, whatever, all that kind of stuff to be like, okay, I'm planning how we can all play this together as much as possible. And meanwhile, the players are in character just duking it out. Like, I thought that you were going to take the keys out of the tractor. And they're like, I tried. It's not a key. It's a key fob.
Can you imagine what the GM group chat looks like in this game?
God,
like, I am so, like, just get out of a session and be like, y'all, you're not gonna fucking believe what we have to deal with, and like out of context picture, and then every GM going, no.
I can absolutely, because I am in a GM group chat for a shared setting. There's like that where people will get out of a session and be like, hey.
Oh, that rules. And of course, we're in the mega game version here, right? Like this is the facilitators.
Not quite. I don't think that this is quite to mega game.
That's true.
I think it could be, but this is something different. I don't know what it is.
This is weirder.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, the Council of GMs.
Is the shared setting campaign a different one from the time loop campaign that you're in?
Yes.
Oh, amazing. You have a lot of relevant experiences. Yeah, it's like what if, you know, speaking of another classic Ben Robbins post, what if West Marches but more?
I want to circle back around to figuring out the like limited amount of loops thing, and like does your damage persist in between loops and stuff, because I think that is interesting to figure out in the scope of the game that we've now designed.
The scope of the game has really expanded, and yes, how do we want to, what does it look like to have that like timer still in play, as you were saying, Marn? Like, what does it look like to have that limited number of loops? One thing that feels obvious to me is that it means that it adds a lot of urgency to the meetings. Like
That's what I
the
was
player
thinking,
planning
The
meetings.
best part of that is like the players being like, oh god.
Yeah. Just having that kind of ticking clock for like, oh, I don't know if like I have enough loops left to like get this plan off.
Oh, could it be is it asymmetric?
Ooh.
Are different people like, or is everyone like on the same timer, or are different people on different timers?
Ooh, I mean, what would it look like if somebody with a shorter timer won? And more specifically, what would it look
Oh.
like if they lost? Like, what does the rest of
Yeah.
the game look like?
Something I was gonna bring up is like if you drop out of the loop, do you just like start playing NPCs? Like what does that look like? Do you become one of the GMs?
One of the GMs. I was wondering if you get put on the GM council. That's just so delightful because you get to be invited to the group chat and be like, what the fuck was happening here? And you getting to spill. There's something so socially delightful about like you learning all the GM secrets before the rest of the players do, and being like, you all have no idea. That does mean like, where do you sit as a GM when we've got these like one-on-one pairings? Oh, then again, if you're dropping out, your GM is also kind of now not
Yeah.
GMing. So like, do we end up like you get redistributed so that some people now have two GMs and you just keep shuffling?
I do feel like it's interesting to have like some people have been in the loop longer than others though. Like there is something about that that is fun to me, of like people who already know that they're in a time loop while other people are just starting to figure it out.
Ooh, I wonder if there's something that is... There's a little bit of a like drop in, drop out, or like a rolling admissions thing to this, where like a new pair of people can join.
It's really fun.
And so like at the next
Wes
player
Marchesy.
meeting,
Yeah.
somebody joins and they're like getting their bearings on being in a time loop, and everyone else is like, yeah, the time knife, etc. Like,
Yeah, we all know about
here's
the
what we
time
need
knife.
you to do, kind of thing. But also now we need to figure out who you are and how you play into this. That like there is such a specific set of variables that has to like line up for that to work. But like, I love the idea of trying to explicitly make room for something like
Yeah,
that.
there's something really fun about being the new guy at like the time loop meeting.
Yes.
I'm just imagining, you know, sometimes like I have had the experience of like listening to people play a game because it's happening at my house or something, and then being like, oh, this is delightful. Or I've even like invited guests to games, and I'm imagining just like hearing an NPC get introduced and being like, can I join your game as that NPC, but I'm also looping? It's so fun.
That's really good. I like the idea of like, if you have a new person who wants to join, you kind of just like give them a big list of like established characters and be like, you want to be any of these guys?
Any of this sound fun to you?
Having essentially variable session sizes is really funny. Just be like, yeah, this person, you can now just join this game, and now there's 2 people. Hooray. Yeah, that's, I think, the only, my main thing about having variable loop lengths is whether, and I don't know if this is true, but does that undercut the idea that like you kind of all have to succeed together in a little bit of a way? Like, do we is one person failing a failure for everybody, or like does that fit thematically? Like, can people have those variable lengths and have that be coherent?
I feel like there's a way to make it work.
Okay, going ambitious here. You can't fail out, but you can find a loop that works for you. And when everyone finds a loop that works for them,
Sorry, when you say works for you.
that solves your problem,
Okay.
and you could get out of your loop, but everyone else might still have a bad ending in your loop with your GM. And then once everyone has found their solution, you enter a new phase of the game where you have to reconcile your solutions, and you go from having these one-on-one games to playing together. And now you have to be like, well, I know what fixes it for me. How do we put all of these into one timeline and so now we're playing a group game where I don't know. Again, I said it was very vicious.
No, totally. It feels to me like what you're saying is what you're doing is merging the idea now with the idea that like the previous version.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Idea, and like maybe there is something there, but they just feel close enough that I'm struggling to see like, what that would sort of how that would play.
I do.
Yeah.
I think there is something to like once you get your way out, you kind of enter a sort of like second phase of the game almost. But
is this game just a pyramid scheme where you're just constantly
Kinda.
recruiting new people to play in your game?
I was gonna also say is the time loop ever expanding? Do we not have an ending to this game? And it's just like every time, because something I was thinking about is that like there's the hard design problem of like being pulled into something with so much canon is like a nightmare. But the rule, I was thinking like what if there's a rule that like you can only hop in as a character who was invented on the last loop that happened, like if someone new got introduced, and so then you do end up with this sort of pyramid schemey, new people get introduced and their time loop opens a new section of the world until you're like butterfly affected into like a totally different place, and you've got this like massive sprawling universe, and maybe eventually some of them loop back around and start tying up together, but also maybe they don't. Like that it's a mess, but it's delightful to me.
Yeah, I mean, yes, these are all things that could happen. I think that there's a lot of stuff here that is like fun. We are probably moving away from a coherent game, and that can be fine because it's fun to talk about, but my impulse is always to try and push towards like, oh, how do we make this resonant, how do we do whatever, that kind of thing. So
we're a little in the spire that we've built. The previous episode we constructed a
Sean Ireland really took us seriously when we said don't worry about scope, and he said, okay, what if you had to build a skyscraper that was also a space elevator and had a literal time cube in it?
So funny.
Yes, and I guess is what I'd say.
So I feel like the idea of having that ticking clock kind of keeps you from getting too large in scope, because if you have that, then there is going to be a point where all your characters die. Or like,
yeah.
And then also, I guess like once you're out of the loop, should there be a way for you to get back in?
Right, like is this a multiple timelines situation kind of thing where like, because one of the things I'm thinking of with people like sort of satisfying their own loop and getting out of it is like, does that cut off possibilities for other players, or does it open up possibilities, or are they now like, do they then hop into somebody else's game? Like, is it 5 one-on-one games and then one person satisfies their loop and so they join someone else's and they're now like, hi, I'm the same character but now I'm in your loop and like we're solving it together or something like, and it's like we have all these different timelines and we are trying to narrow them down to one.
I like that.
Really
I like that a lot. I like that like once you've satisfied your own win condition, you kind of become a free agent and can like float in between almost.
Yes, as you have to get back to the weird cosmic thing, and then you get to choose like, okay, well, I'm coming with you. Like I'm joining your loop this time.
You get to become the person who joins in who in season 3 of the show shows up and is like, I've looped before, and like you're not going about this the right way. Like, here, inexperienced time traveler, let me show you the ropes.
There's even a little bit of the Russian doll like second character thing here, right? Of the like, okay, well now we can do this together, sort of thing. One of the questions I have is, what determines how many loops somebody gets before they fail?
Yeah.
Like, is it the same for everybody, or is it somehow, I could see it being based on their genre?
Oh, I like that. Yes, I actually like it being based on genre.
Right, because like some of them are a little bit more gentle and forgiving than others. The horror serial killer one is probably like, ugh, my cosmic body is riddled with scar tissue. I only have 4 more or whatever.
But Bill Murray can go like many, many times.
And then that kind of lends itself to like, oh, if you're in the rom-com, you can like spend a loop just learning a skill. And then if you're in the slasher, like you don't have that time to waste.
That's really interesting as a pacing thing, not only for that person, but also like as they start joining other loops. If that continues being true, it's really funny if there's somebody who has been quite lackadaisical, who keeps showing up to the meetings to be like, I learned origami. Look at my cool crane. And then serial killer protagonist joins their loop and is like, no more fucking around. I've got 5 here too. Like, we are solving this. Tell me what you've been up to so far. And they're like, did you see my cranes? And they're like,
stop learning skills. You have to lock in.
Lock in. Apply your skills to something, please.
The opposite, the person making cranes accidentally solves their loop really fast and shows up and is like, dude, you need to chill. You're trying too hard. It's getting in your way.
The final question I guess I would have for that is, what is the consequence of failure? Is it like, and does that tie into this structure? Like, let's say we have people who are solving their loops and they're joining other games. We sort of talked about a few different ideas of this, but like, what does this look like realized in sort of this version of it? Like, if you don't solve your loop in a specific length of time, what happens? Are you out of the game? Are you GMing? Are you pyramid scheme recruiting someone else to the game? I especially bring this up because I mean, it sounds like this would be predictable, so it's not quite this, but I really, really try to be very careful because of my intense reactions when something ends unexpectedly or that kind of thing. That tends to really bum me out. Like I struggle with like momentum cutting off really quickly, and so I want to be really careful when it comes to failure states. Like, what is the cooldown from that? How does that play out?
I feel like if success means that you get to like then become a floater and like be a player in other people's universes, failure should mean that you get brought into the GM chat, because then it's like, oh well, like your character no longer exists, but like you get to be like the force of the universe acting on these other characters. You get like subsumed into time almost.
What if they swap?
Oh, the GM becomes a character?
Yeah.
And you become their
fun.
GM?
Yeah.
That's really fun.
I
That's
like that,
really,
actually.
really, really fun.
And then theoretically that could go on forever.
Yeah.
Like you just keep swapping back and forth until you all
It's a
figure it
loop.
out. Yeah.
Oh, I guess technically, yeah, you swap back and forth until everybody manages to succeed.
Oh,
I
which, yeah.
think that's
What
fun.
happens to the GM when their player wins? Like if they get out of their loop and they join another game?
Oh.
Does the GM also join another game?
Are you double GM now?
They get to just hang out.
You just get to chill?
I love the idea that you're growing in both GMs and players.
Yeah, that's funny.
I also wanted to pitch at you, Satah. This is maybe depressing and unfun in a different way, but just to put it out there, the idea that you don't stop playing your character, you're just doomed in the narrative now. You join in somebody else's loop, but you're gonna get your bad end every time. I don't know that that's fun, but it is, I feel like, thematic slightly.
For me, I think then that depends on the pacing and the time scale of it, because I love to play to lose, and I like that sounds like it would be fun to me for a session, you know? Like that is like, and then at that point I start going like,
the futility is,
well, what am I like, can I, is this forever for me as a person? Like, or do I get a chance to, I would want a chance to, if I helped someone else do their loop, I would want a chance to go back and fix mine probably. Like I would want, that kind of thing.
I love that. If you have these cascading failures and the doomed people get shunted off into other people's loops, and then once they help someone fix their loop, it unlocks them getting to fix theirs again, like in the reverse cascades. Oh my god,
what a weird structure.
What a number of weird structures. I'm delighted. We talked about Happy Death Day inverting certain tropes, and we really just went, what if we could, like, throw it all into the wind?
I do think it's fun having the situation where you're setting two people up in a room together, because then you open it up to stuff like, well, I could help you, but I could also hunt you for sport in the time loop.
Oh my god, right.
Oh, now we're in a, this is how you lose the time war.
Yeah. I feel like you could also set up a thing where, like, if somebody has failed out of their own time loop, you could bring them into your genre, even if that's not the genre that they started in.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, like, in Palm Springs, it's just like he brings Cris and Melody to, like, the mystical cave that time loops you. And it's like, well, you're out of your loop. Let me bring you to the mystical cave that put me in a time loop.
Yeah.
It does sound. I really like continually putting characters in super unfamiliar situations and seeing how they react to stuff that is just like totally different from their world. Sounds really fun. I like that idea a lot. I am generally like, I make a podcast where people play solo games and then I edit them together, and I like, it has made me even more invested in like exploring different ways that play can be asynchronous, and like how can you play stuff together but very like self-paced and separate and that kind of thing. And one of the things that this kind of reminds me of is the game called Up Is Out, which is by Luciano Dalbert. It is a solo co-op one-page RPG where basically you are all playing solo games. You're all like in a weird base, and you all have a specific job, and you are all going out to explore, and then you're coming back. And if somebody else is like at home base when you come back, you can like talk to them and you can like work with them and do something, but it's very asymmetric. It's all like you are doing stuff on your own, and then you can come back together, two or more of you, to sort of like communicate and do stuff together. And I am like so into the structure of this game, and like that is something that it is different in what we've been talking about, because it's a little bit more regimented of like, it sounds like you would be arranging, though there is the possibility of making it more flexible, which is like, if 3 people die on Monday in like, maybe they are having a meeting without the like 2 people who don't die until Friday or whatever, like I think there can be flexibility there, but like I am really into the idea of exploring ways that games can not be reliant on scheduling is part of it, just logistically.
Absolutely.
Like, this would be a great play-by-post structure, too. You're going off and you're having your, like, individual scenes, and then when you're all ready, you're going, okay, how can we get 5 people together in this kind of thing? And you have a lot more time in between. So, yeah, I'm really interested in exploring structures that enable very different levels of, like, commitment and time, and just like are a little bit more open to be like, okay, here, it's okay, you don't have to figure out like 4 hours every week, you can figure out half an hour every day for 3 weeks or whatever. And I don't know, just some flexibility there is really cool, and something that I appreciate when games play with.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm also like thinking about the GMs having their meetings at the same time as everyone else, and like the information imbalance there. That's very fun to me.
Absolutely, same.
Because I was thinking about Cage of Sand, which is another tabletop game that does time loop stuff, and it has like a non-GM'd, like it is made to be a non-GM'd game, but it also has a GM variant where basically like in the downtime between loops, the GM is just like writing down things about the loop that they don't necessarily have to tell the player. And it's just like stuff that they're going to like put clues to in the next loop. But usually when you play without a GM, you and like whatever other players are go through and have your meeting at the end of every loop and be like, okay, what are the things like, here are the questions that we have to answer and, like, our observations. But, like, when you play with a GM, they answer those questions alone. And you have to, like, figure out the answers through context clues.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, the just generally the sort of, like, figuring out ways to make it satisfying to kind of interact with an immovable object that has been decided ahead of time is really fascinating to me, and I think something that is there's so much room for in, obviously, like, time loop games specifically. Like, it's kind of pulling back to the war game comparisons in some way, like, be like, we have to figure out how all of these things, because they're all happening. So, you know, I really like that. I think that's really cool.
You have your canon events that the GMs have planned out and the players have to work around.
Which is kind of funny. Like, it's almost it's building a healthier expectation around what is sometimes a really unhealthy, especially amateur GM habit of it's like railroading, but we've all agreed to it, you know? Like, it's the GM is telling their story, but we all know that, and so we're all trying to push that story around.
Yes, we are trying to figure out how do we slot our, like, go in the directions we want to go, and we know we're going to have to hit those beats. It's really fun.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, well, this was fantastic. What a just, I think that one thing, I really feel like we came in pretty high energy because we're also coming off of another recording. So I think we were all like, everyone involved in this series has been recording a lot this weekend. And so everyone's sort of like in a place. And I think that really showed in the directions that we went. And I love that. So Marn, is there anything that you would like to direct people towards?
Yeah, two things. I have on my itch.io that I plugged at the top of the show, marns.itch.io, a playtest edition of a Powered by the Apocalypse game that I'm writing called MetaFiction. Surprise, surprise. And it is a PBTA game where it has a set of fiction playbooks where you play as fictional archetypes and meta playbooks where you play as characters that know that they exist in a story. And you kind of get different powers depending on which playbooks you play, and you interact betwixt and between each other. The other thing that I want to plug is aforementioned actual play podcast that I'm on that did a series of time loop episodes. Jeff Stormer from Party of One and I make a fanfiction actual play podcast called Batman Bump in the Night, and you can find the first whole season of it for free wherever you get your podcasts. And we had a situation where our finale episode got lost because we recorded it live and we lost all of the audio for it. And then we re-recorded it across 3 different episodes as a time loop, with the lost episode being the original loop that you never get to hear.
Of course.
And I am very proud of how that turned out. So you should go listen to it. It is a fanfiction podcast where every episode one of us plays Batman and the other person sets up a mystery for them to solve.
That's incredible. Absolutely. You just simply have so many relevant experiences to what we're talking about today. Jess, do you have anything you'd like to direct people towards?
Yeah, I'll send people towards my itch as well, which is jumpgategames.itch.io. You can also find me on Bluesky as at jessfrom.online. And as I mentioned in the last episode, my game Planet Fist isn't quite a time loop game, but it is a you can die and go again game. And it has a sort of Edge of Tomorrow feel to it. So if you came here because you were like, I want a time loop season, that kind of might be what you're looking for. So check it out. Consider it.
Perfect. There are as we have discovered very much in the past couple episodes, in these episodes, there are a lot of things that could be a time loop.
Yes.
I have been Satah. You can find me on Bluesky at satachips.gaygothvibes.online. You can check out my website at gaygothvibes.online. You should go to the Haunted Table Patreon. You can join as a free member to get a bunch of cool, like, design thoughts and often very specifically Triangle Agency advice. And you can join at $3 at the Ghost tier to get a playtest version of a bunch of things, but very specifically right now, the House Edge, which is our Triangle Agency Fist Ultra Edition crossover that is a roguelite card crawl where you are time looping your way through the vault. It's great. It's big. It has expanded. It had its scope crept into something truly beautiful, and I love it very much. We will be crowdfunding it at some point this year, most likely, but right now you can go access the full current playtest version. Let us know what you think. Let us know how that loop is looping for you. And I believe that is about it. Thank you to Cris Viana for the logo. Thank you to Nicky Flowers for the theme song. Check out thisshouldbeaga.me to figure out. You can put all the clues together to where we are on Bluesky, our Discord, our Patreon. That's it. This has been This Should Be a Game, a podcast about the moment where you say, this should be a game.
This should be a game.
What if it was?